Hello there friends and welcome! Today we have yet another Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous guide, still about the latest DLC, A Dance of Masks. We've already done a review, covered the best archetypes and items, and now it is time for all of the new DLC added feats, and we have a lot of them, especially good for spellcasters. Besides that, we also cover the new DLC spells, mostly for arcane casters up to level 4. But even bards got something new. So let's dive right into it, first with the new feats. They're easy to find because they are mostly all at the bottom of the feat list. Let's start with Acrobatic Spellcaster. It's kinda poor, to be fair. We have much better stuff coming up next. But when you use Acrobatics to avoid an attack of opportunity, you can also use it to avoid provoking an attack of opportunity by casting a spell or failing the concentration check. It's a very minor use that I would never bother spending a feat on, because you can easily avoid attacks of opportunity by, just not casting spells so close to the enemy. Second, we have Ambuscading Spell, and this is a very good new feat. To put it simply, flat-footed opponents will now take a -2 penalty on their saving throws against all spells you cast. Don't forget that by rolling high on initiative and acting before the enemies will already be automatically flat-footed, which means this can work even as early as level 1. It also means the pickpocket background we all know and love is even better now, because the higher your initiative, the better for forcing the enemies to become flat-footed. Also, don't forget, if you ambush the enemies by, let's say, casting a spell before battle starts, they'll also be considered flat-footed. So you don't even need to roll high on initiative. While you can't use this on every single battle, there is a reason I always tell you to charge before battle, and it's because you ambush the enemies. Now you can also benefit from using spells through Ambuscading Spell. Only a few battles in the game don't let you do this, usually boss battles where you're already starting battle, but that's where high initiative comes into play. Overall, it's definitely a must-have if you want to min-max your DC, because the effect is huge, especially early. Speaking about increasing DC, the Arcane Spirit new feat is also amazing for that. As a swift action, so it's activated very fast and won't consume your spellcast for the same turn, you can make a Persuasion bluff check against the enemy's perception, and if you make the check, the target will take a -2 penalty to saving throws against the next spell you cast. Also quite crippling because -2 is a very big amount. Considering how easy it is to increase your persuasion scores by enormous amount through gear and buffs, you can easily make this, especially for charisma-focused casters like sorcerers and bards. The range itself is also huge, so you don't have to be close to the enemy at all to use this, and it's quickly activated. So, by just combining Ambuscading Spell and Arcane Spirit, you can already have a -4 to one of the enemy saves even as early as level 1. We also have more feats that directly increase the power of your dispelling magics. Starting with Dispel Focus, whenever you attempt a dispel check, you gain a +2 bonus. Quite good because the toughest enemies in the game, they are only tough because they come pre-buffed with loads of effects. And they also tend to have very high caster level, so unless you are, let's say, a Merged Angel or Lich with very high caster level, or an AEON, it's gonna be hard to dispel the most powerful enemies. Dispel Focus can help with that. You also have Greater Dispel Focus, which is the same but an extra +2 for a total of +4. Now let's cover the new Diva style feats. Starting with Diva style. It lets you attempt a Persuasion bluff check to feint as a free action when you begin a bardic performance. Of course, it requires you to have feint, so we need to know what that actually does. Feint costs combat expertise, and well, lets you make a bluff check. If successful, the next melee attack you make against the enemy will not allow them to benefit from their dexterity bonus to AC, so kinda like being flat-footed. It only costs a move action, so you can still attack in the same round you use it. Diva style lets you do feint for free, so as a free action instead of a move action, when you activate your bardic performance. So my main issue with Diva style is that at first, when I read the feat, I thought it would be good because I imagined it would automatically apply feint as area of effect whenever you're using your bardic performance. But unfortunately, it's limited to just one feint as a free action. And hitting just one enemy with this is kind of poor because often you're fighting multiple enemies in this game. Usually only boss battles are single enemies, even then they often have adds as well. And considering how feat heavy this is, right, you need 13 intelligence, then you also need Feint, and Feint itself requires combat expertise. Then you need to get Diva style. I'm not sure if most characters will have the space for this. If it was area of effect for all enemies affected with your bardic performance, well, I would probably have rated it higher then. We also have Diva Strike. While using Diva style, the first time you hit with a melee weapon in a round, you'll deal additional damage equal to your Charisma modifier. Lastly, Diva Advance. When using Diva style, creatures you successfully feinted cannot make attacks of opportunity, kinda poor, but the second effect is quite good. After you successfully feint while using Diva style, you'll make an attack of opportunity against that creature. It kinda surprises me that we didn't get a new archetype that got the feint abilities for free, because it does feel like something you would get from an archetype. Because as it stands, it's quite the feat intensive package for something that's not really that amazing. Since we are talking about Feint, we might as well cover the other Feint feats. Final Feint, quite the powerful feat because it now forces the feinted enemy to lose their dexterity bonus to AC against all melee attacks made by anyone in your party. This one is definitely a must-have if you're going with feinting. Ranged Feint, on the other hand, lets you feint with a ranged weapon, while Slayer's Feint lets you use mobility instead of persuasion for feinting. Lastly, two-weapon feint kinda lets you apply feint for free by forsaking your first primary hand melee attack. So instead of attacking the enemy with the first main hand attack, you'll instead get to make a feint check for free. We also have two new exclusive feats, all for the Bard class. The first is Discordant Voice. And by the way, this only works on bards, not skalds, unfortunately. Whenever you are using one of your bardic songs, you always will be, every single one of your party members will now deal an extra 1d6 points of sonic damage. Quite powerful because, well, first, it's applied on top of your Inspire Courage song anyways, which will always be in effect. Second, most enemies in the game do not resist sonic damage at all. Demons, for example, tend to have minor elemental resistance, but not against sonic. And since this is party-wide for every single one of your party members' attacks, it's definitely a must-have. Second, we have Harmonic Spell, which lets you constantly regenerate your uses of bardic performance, so whenever you cast a spell of level 1 or higher, so long as you are maintaining a bardic performance, you will restore 1 round of your bardic performance uses. Quite good, because, well, you can always use this out of battle when casting buffs like haste, for example, and you also always want to sync before battle starts, so you won't waste an action in battle doing so. It's just that, because you already have the Lingering Performance feat that any bard or skald wants as early as level 1, you don't really need Harmonic Spell because you'll never run out through Lingering Performance. Although this can be good with the new Chelaxian Diva class that has an ability to consume bardic performance for higher DC on their abilities. Next up we have Favorite Enemy Spellcasting. Your favorite enemies will receive a -2 penalty on saving throws against your spells. It's not that good, I'm afraid, because Rangers don't care about spell DC at all. There is something to be said, however, about going Ranger and Demon Slayer because it grants you Favorite Enemy for free on level 1 against all demons, and multi-classing Ranger with a caster class for essentially a -2 DC against all the toughest targets. It's just that, well, this is kinda unnecessary, I find, unless you are a legend with levels to spare, because usually for spellcasters, you don't want to reduce your caster level. Although, well, once you have level 9 spells anyways, you still have 3 levels to spare that I suppose you could spend one of them multiclassing in Demon Slayer Ranger if you really wanted to min-max it out. Next up we have the new meta magic feats Intensified Spell and Piercing Spell. Intensified Spell is quite a new welcome addition to the game because of how good it is. This lets your spells bypass their damage caps so long as they're limited, as an Intensified Spell will increase the maximum number of damage dice by 5 whole levels. Of course, you do need to have enough caster level to make the use of it. Let's say the classic Fireball. It caps out at 10d6 damage when applying Intensified Meta Magic. So long as you have 15 caster level, your Fireball would now scale up to level 15 for 15d6. The spell does need to have something that scales based on your caster level, however, for damage, and a cap, which is why it won't work with something like Scorching Ray, because the 4d6 points of fire damage, well, it works regardless of your caster level. The best use of Intensified Spell is of course with everyone's favorite Hellfire Ray, which was already quite the overpowered spell, now it's even better, if you can even believe that. Because Hellfire Ray fires 3 rays at max level, each capable of dealing a maximum of 15d6, so that's 45d6 total per cast. However, when you apply Intensified Meta Magic to it, and you have at least 20 caster level, very easy to get, right, because it's 1d6 per caster level, each tick of your Hellfire Rays will now fire for 20d6 whole points of damage, so that's 60d6 total for just a single cast. Don't forget you have all sorts of other buffs that you can apply to further increase this damage, like Meta Magic, Empower, Bolster, Maximize, also gear bonuses to fire damage and so on, including Sorcerer Dragon Bloodlines. Anyways, if you thought Hellfire Ray was OP enough in that it could delete bosses before as the best source of single target damage, well, just try it out with Intensified Spells. My Demon Caster, for example, was able to hit higher than 1500 damage with each cast of Hellfire Ray. Don't forget, you can cast it 3 times per turn now, which is 180d6 damage total. Demons actually get you to do it 4 times, because remember, we have the new Razmir Mask to cast a spell as a free action. To put it simply, nothing will survive your Intensified Hellfire Ray onslaught. As simple as that. For the next new Meta Magic feat, we have Piercing Spell. This one is kinda poor, I'm afraid. It just helps you overcome spell resistance, but there are oh so many ways in this game of doing that, including lots of gear bonuses, the Spell Penetration feat, higher caster level through gear. I don't think it's worth it at all. And I do think this is it for the new feats, but if I miss something, as always, please be sure to comment down below. Actually, while they aren't exactly feats, I do believe we have new advanced rogue talents. For example, Petrifying Strike. I'm pretty sure this was not here before. It's pretty much the dexterity drain variant of the classic Crippling Strike. So whenever you hit the enemy with a sneak attack, you automatically drain 2 points of dexterity from them. Considering its stacks, it can be quite good. It's just that I'd much rather have Wearing Strike, which drains Constitution, so reduces the enemy's hit points as you attack. Although of course reducing their dexterity means less AC. There's also Emboldening Strike, which provides you bonuses to saving throws whenever you hit enemies with sneak attacks. Not really that necessary, I think. You'll have buffs and other ways of doing that. As far as class abilities, I believe we also have new rage powers, which of course the Skald can also pick and share with the whole party, such as Come and Get Me. While raging as a free action, you can leave yourself open to attacks, which is quite dangerous, as enemies will get a +4 bonus on attack and damage against you, but on the other hand, every attack they try to perform against you will provoke an attack of opportunity from you. Attacks of opportunity are of course amazing, it's just that, like I said, this is very dangerous, especially early game. Later, well, depending on how maxed out your defenses are, sure, you can take the penalty, but early, not really, unless you wanna die, I suppose. Better save it for when you have actually great defenses. We also have Clear Mind. Once per rage, you'll get to reroll the first failed will saving throw and take the better result. It's decent and all, but you have limited rage powers and so many ways of increasing your will or making you immune to mind-affecting abilities and spells. Oh, I almost forgot it, but we also have a new teamwork feat focused on Spellcasters, Spell Chain, which basically helps you penetrate the enemy spell resistance. Kinda necessary, I find, because there are so many ways of overcoming this in Wrath of the Righteous. We do actually have a new domain, as we can now worship Achaekek, the Mantis Assassin God, which is a new deity added in the DLC, of course, and he has the Murder subdomain, the most unique ability being Healing Blow. At level 8, as a free action, whenever you confirm a critical hit, you'll deal additional bleed damage. Not really that good, I think, considering how busted some other domains already are, like Law, Community, Animal, and so on. Now let us cover the new spells added by the Dance of Masks DLC. Just like the feats, they are usually at the bottom of the spell list. It's easy to find. We mostly have new arcane spells of low levels up to level 4. Sad, because I really wish we had higher level spells, especially level 9 ones. Where's Chain Contingency, Time Stop, you know, all the broken good greatest hits from Baldur's Gate. After all, they fit the Mythic power scale of Wrath, I find. Anyways, the first one is Incendiary Runes, a level 1 Abjuration spell. It's kinda like a very, very, very minor fireball. It hits a circle but a very small burst, and the runes will deal 1d6 points of fire, plus if the enemy catches on fire, they'll keep on taking 1d6 fire for 1 minute. Not really good, especially for Wrath. I mean, even early you already have enemies that will ignore the low damage by virtue of resisting fire, and even later the damage is just so bad. I mean, at least something like Burning Hands can deal 5d4, even more now with Intensified Spells. I can't really see a use for Incendiary Runes unless you are fusing it with another spell, because the Magic Deceiver Arcanist does get it at level 1. For level 2 we have Haunting Mists. It will conjure forth a big mist in a huge area. Attacks made against targets inside the mist will be made with total concealment, plus all creatures inside must save or take 1d2 points of wisdom damage and become shaken. The secondary part is decent, it's just that the first part kinda limits its use, because look, you don't wanna use this on enemies because they'll then get full concealment against your attacks, and you don't wanna use this on your characters to get concealment because they'll then be constantly drained and become shaken, so I'm not sure what's the use of this spell, outside of once again combining with Arcanist Magic Deceiver, just for the area variant. We have 4 new spells for level 3 ones, starting with Silver Darts. It's cast as a cone, and will deal 1d6 points of piercing damage per caster level, 15 with Intensified Spells, of course. It's, I mean, okay, not really that special, considering you could just, you know, go for a fireball and there's better gear support for fire damage at this point. But once again, the Magic Deceiver can combine this with a fireball. It's kind of funny, but I think the new spells are all focused into Magic Deceiver, because otherwise they don't have that much of an use so far. Second, we have Explosive Runes, which deal 6d6 force damage as area of effect. Once again, kinda subpar, unless fusing. Next up, Excruciating Deformation. It's a melee touch attack, which is kinda annoying, and will attempt to deal dexterity damage and constitution damage to the enemy, but has saving throws, kinda poor overall. The last new level 3 spell, however, is very good and quite the welcome change at last. Keen Edge, one of the most classic Neverwinter Nights spells, finally here in Pathfinder. It's essentially the same effect as the improved critical feat, so will double the critical threat range of a weapon. The main benefits of Keen Edge over the feat is that first, the duration is very high. 10 minutes per level means it will never run out because it's real time. Second, it can be acquired way before improved critical, right? As a level 3 arcane spell, you get it at level 5. improved critical from most characters is only at level 11, or around level 8 or 9 if you are a high BAB class like a fighter. And of course, it means you won't have to get the feat. However, there's still something to be said about actually acquiring the improved critical feat, because improved critical is not only a prerequisite for Mythic critical, which is very good, but also all the special trickster boosting critical feats. Kinaj is still great, however. We do have a new level 4 spell as well, Curse of Magic Negation. If the enemy fails the will saving throw, they essentially get an ability that makes it harder for them to cast spells. Because whenever they try to cast a spell, they must make a caster level check against the spell resistance granted by the spell, which is 10 plus caster level. They will make a 1d20 plus caster level check against 10 plus your caster level. I don't think it's particularly good. Also note that most of the spells we covered so far are for arcane casters, not divine. Anyways, bards at level 3 have both Purging Finale and also Reviving Finale. Purging requires you to have a bardic performance in effect, you always have. You can then choose to end it, and remove one of the following conditions on a creature within range: dazzled, exhausted, paralyzed, shaken, and stunned. It's better for stunned, the rest is easy to recover from. As for the Reviving variant, it lets you heal allies by finishing one of your bardic performances. This is better because it's also cast as a swift action, so can kinda work as healing in a pinch, as to, for example, prevent a character from dying or getting knocked down. They even have a new level 5 spell, Heaven's Wing Strike. It hits creatures in a cone, is negated by Fortitude, and if they fail the saving throw, they'll be paralyzed, one of the most crippling debuffs, for 1d4 rounds. Well, if you are building a bard that's focused on DC, this can be good, it's just that chances are you are much better served by just spamming, where is it? Here at level 1, Hideous Laughter, with all the enchantment boosting gear and the best jokes mythic ability. Last but not least, I mentioned this in the new Archetypes guide, but the Magic Deceiver class also has a few spells unique to itself. They are basically spells that reduces the enemy's saving throws, AC, or resistances, starting with Peer into Energy Resistance at level 1. They all hit one enemy by default, don't have a saving throw, which is amazing, and also no spell resistance, great. Peer into Energy Resistance lets you reduce the enemy's energy resistance, of course, by 1 per caster level. Then at the second level you have Peer into Reflexes, which is the same but for reflex saving throw, -1 for 3 caster levels for a maximum of -6. At level 3 we have my favorite, Peer into Mind, because of all of the powerful will-based spells for crowd control. It's just that if you've watched my best new Archetypes guide, when I tried fusing Peer into Mind, any of the Peer spells really with other spells, they were not working at all, which is very disappointing. I imagine it's a bug, because the whole idea is that you can combine, let's say, Peer into Mind with a huge crowd control spell like Phantasmal Web. Then, because Phantasmal Web is Area of Effect, you can turn Peer into Mind into Area of Effect as well, and essentially hit the whole enemy pack with a huge will debuff, and then attempt to apply the crowd control spell you want, and the enemy will be debuffed for it, of course, thus increasing the chances of it working. But sadly, it's not really working at the moment. Anyways, at level 4 we have Peer into Endurance, which is the same for Fortitude saves. Then level 5 Peer into Avoidance, which is for the enemy's touch AC, kinda disappointing because touch AC is already very low compared to normal AC. I'd much rather this work for normal AC instead. Culminating into Peer into Spell Resistance, which amusingly enough, despite being the highest of the spell variants, is the weakest of them all, because all it does is reduce spell resistance, and I've repeated this many times, but in Wrath you have loads of ways of getting high spell penetration way before this. So kind of a waste. And well, I do believe we are at long last at the end of our best new items, feats, and spells for the Dance of Masks new Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous DLC. Of course, if I missed something, feel free to comment down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you can to support the channel, I highly appreciate it. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.